When we talk about long wars, the Hundred Years' War usually comes to mind. But look at this diagram. That tiny sliver is 116 years. This massive block is the Reconquista, 781 years of continuous conflict. To understand how a war lasts 8 centuries, we have to start in the year 711. The Iberian Peninsula, modern-day Spain and Portugal, was ruled by the Christian Visigoths. On paper, they were wealthy and centralized. In reality, their kingdom was brittle, paralyzed by rival nobles endlessly settling personal vendettas. Across the Strait of Gibraltar sat the Umayyad Caliphate. They were a global superpower stretching from the Atlantic to Persia. Unlike the fractured Visigoths, the Umayyads were driven by a unified mission of expansion, a holy duty to bring new lands under Islamic rule. An 8th-century struggle requires more than just military numbers to sustain. This war demonstrates that territory is ultimately won and held by whichever side can master its own internal cohesion. The collapse happened fast. In 711, a Berber general named Tariq bin Ziyad crossed the narrow water with a force of about 7,000 men. They landed here, on the steep, rocky cliff that today bears his name, Tariq's Mountain, or Gibraltar. When the Visigothic king Roderick met the invaders at the river Guadalete, he actually held a massive numerical advantage, but the internal rot of his kingdom was fatal. Mid-battle, fractured Visigoth nobles literally abandoned their king, guaranteeing the destruction of their own army. General Tariq pushed north immediately. Within 7 years, the 300-year-old Christian kingdom was erased. In its place rose a new province of caliphate, Al-Andalus. The new Muslim governors ignored the small pocket of Christian rebels who refused to surrender. These stragglers retreated deep into the misty, isolated mountain valleys of Asturias, a region so rugged that the Umayyads decided the tax revenue wasn't worth the effort of a final conquest. The total collapse of the Visigoths was a result of their own internal divisions. Because they could not coordinate a defense, the entire peninsula fell to a unified conqueror in less than a decade. By the 10th century, the dynamic had shifted. Al-Andalus became the independent caliphate of Córdoba. Look at this wealth. This was the most advanced and unified society in Europe, serving as a beacon of learning and administrative order. Meanwhile, the northern Christians organized into a handful of small, poor realms like Leon and Castile. They were patient, slowly pushing their border south, one valley at a time. This is an 11th century astrolabe. Its intricate engravings represent the scientific and technological dominance of Al-Andalus. Through vast trade networks, they introduced advanced irrigation, citrus, and complex algebra to the continent, but the system relied on total unity. When the central authority in Córdoba died out in 1009, the superpower shattered into dozens of independent city-states. These fragmented zones, known as taifas, immediately turned on each other, starting civil wars that tore the south apart. By losing their internal cohesion, the Muslim rulers handed a massive strategic advantage to the patient, observing Christian kingdoms in the north. The Christian realms took advantage of the fractured taifas. Led by Castile and Aragon, they launched a relentless southern push, capturing fortresses and territory as the Muslim princes fought amongst themselves. The division was so severe that some Muslim city-states actually paid tribute to Christian kings in exchange for protection from other neighboring Muslim rulers. In 1085, the Christians captured Toledo, the old Visigothic capital. Panicking, the taifas called for help from North Africa. They imported 2 successive hardline empires, the Almoravids and the Almohads, to enforce Islamic law and order by force. These interventions dealt heavy blows to the Christians, halting the advance for generations. But like the taifas before them, these African empires eventually lost their zeal and splintered, becoming vulnerable once again. This manuscript illustrates the Battle of Las Nevadas de Tolosa in 1212. In a rare moment of cooperation, the Christian kingdoms formed a massive coalition and faced the Almohad army in the Andalusian hills. The Christian victory was decisive. By mastering the power of a coalition exactly when the Muslim forces were losing their own momentum, the Christians broke the back of Al-Andalus forever. By the mid-1200s, almost all of Iberia had been reclaimed. Only the Kingdom of Granada remained as an isolated Muslim holdout. It was small, wealthy, and protected by the Sierra Nevada mountains. Granada survived for over 200 years through diplomacy. Its rulers paid heavy tribute to Christian Castile and married into their courts, carefully playing a diplomatic game to delay the end of their rule. That game ended in the late 1400s, when Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile married. Their union merged Spain into a single, unstoppable superstate with a clear mission of total religious and political unity. The structural weight of a unified Spain was impossible for Granada to resist. In 1492, after a final 10-year campaign, the city was absorbed, bringing the last pocket of Muslim rule on the peninsula to a close. It was January 2, 1492. The map of Iberia was consolidated. After 781 years of continuous generational struggle, the Reconquista was finished. But the long war had forged a hyper-militarized society. The entire identity of the new Spanish state was built on the momentum of holy conquest and expansion. Ferdinand and Isabella possessed a unified, highly effective war machine. With no territory left to take it home, they looked toward the horizon. That same year, they handed their flag to Christopher Columbus. The crusading energy that had burned across Iberia for 8 centuries was now redirected straight into the Atlantic. In 1492, the Reconquista exhausted the available land in Europe. To sustain its momentum, the Spanish state crossed the ocean and began building a global empire in the Americas.